Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Biology Remedial Lessons. Today we are on Remedial Lesson 11. We are going to talk about photosynthesis. You are welcome. Define photosynthesis. Define photosynthesis. We can say that photosynthesis is the process by which green plants build up organic compounds from carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight. The process by which the green plants build up organic compounds from carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight energy. So that is our process of photosynthesis. We have our green plants. They are building up organic compounds, glucose, and so on. And they are using inorganic substances like carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight. State the importance of photosynthesis. State the importance of photosynthesis. We can say that photosynthesis is used in the formation of sugars or glucose, which is a source of energy. It is used in the formation of glucose. Glucose is made through a process of photosynthesis. Now, when we look at our respiration reaction, coming from backwards, it is photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis, we use sunlight energy, is combined with carbon dioxide and water to give us glucose and oxygen. But we say that it is used in the formation of glucose, which is a source of energy. Glucose is a source of energy, and that one is respiration. When we get glucose, our glucose, we burn it with the oxygen, we are going to get carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So we can conclude by saying one of the importance of photosynthesis is the formation of glucose, which is a source of energy. Another importance is the purification of air. That is, we use the carbon dioxide and we release oxygen. Of course, that is when we get carbon dioxide, add it to water in the presence of sunlight, energy, chlorophyll, we get glucose and the oxygen. It is the purification of air. We are using the carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. And the pollutant carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere. Then the carbon dioxide is going to react with water in the presence of sunlight energy, which is trapped by chlorophyll. We shall produce glucose and oxygen as a byproduct. Oxygen will be released in the atmosphere, and this oxygen is vital in the respiration process. So we can say that one of the importance of photosynthesis is the purification of air by removing the pollutant carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, which is vital for the respiration process. Another importance of photosynthesis It is used in the storage of energy to be used later. It is used in the storage of energy to be used later. We have our carbon dioxide during the process of photosynthesis is taken up, and water, they are taken up, of course, in the presence of sunlight energy, which is trapped by chlorophyll, and it is going to be stored in glucose or in the production of sugar, which will be stored as starch, and then we shall also release oxygen. So, photosynthesis is used in the storage of energy. Our carbon dioxide is taken up with water, and we use the sunlight energy. And this sunlight energy is the one which we are going to convert into glucose, which is going to be stored as starch, and we shall also release oxygen as a byproduct. So you find that we are using energy which is coming from the sunlight, and this energy is going to be trapped by chlorophyll. Of course, chlorophyll will convert the light into energy, which is chemical energy, and that chemical energy is the one which is going to end up forming the glucose, and the glucose will be converted to sucrose for transport. And when it is transported, the sucrose again now will be converted to starch and taken to storage areas. So it is our starch which is storing the energy, which will be used later on. Another importance of photosynthesis is it stores energy in wood, coal, oil, to be used later to run industries. Photosynthesis is important in the storage of energy, and this energy is mainly organic in nature. For example, some of the organic nature or compounds which keep energy, we have wood, coal, and oil. Those ones, wood, coal, and oil, are organic in nature because they are made up of carbon as the main skeleton with hydrogen. And you find that all these ones, they are all products of photosynthesis. Wood is a product of photosynthesis. Coal and oil are also products of photosynthesis. And these ones are the ones that we are going to burn to release the energy. And this energy is the one we are going to use to run our industries and also to run our homes, providing us with warmth, providing us with heat to cook, and also doing other activities to run engines and so on. So it is wood, coal, oil, which are storing energy that we are using later on to run the industries and also to provide energy for maintaining and running our homes. But still, wood still has more energy stored in it. It can still provide food, energy in form of food, to small organisms like termites. They can feed on the wood and derive their energy from the wood. And in the process of feeding on the wood, they end up breaking it down into smaller tiny particles, which we call sawdust. And that wood sawdust can still be used to grow food like mushroom. So you can see that the products of photosynthesis like wood, coal, and oil are storing energy, which we are using later as a source of energy to run our industries, to run our home, to provide us energy at home, and then also to provide energy for some of the living organisms. State the structural adaptation of the leaf to its function. Structural adaptation of the leaf to its function. The leaf has a broad and flattened lamina to provide a large surface area for trapping optimum light for photosynthesis and allow maximum gaseous exchange. Before we understand this explanation, structure adaptation of the leaf for its function, we need first of all to understand the different parts of the leaf. We have the tip. That tip, we call it the leaf apex. Then we have the blade. The blade is the same as we call the lamina. We have the vein. There is also what we call the midrib and the leaf stalk. Those are some of the parts, external features of the leaf. So we are saying the leaf has a broad and flattened area. It has a broad and a flattened area from one end of the leaf to the other end of the leaf. That gives it a broad area. And it also has a flattened lamina. It has a flattened lamina, and this flattened lamina, that means that it has few cells thick. It has few cells thick, and being that it has got few cells thick, that one provides a small diffusion distance over which gases can diffuse. So the broad and the flattened lamina, they provide a large surface area. When you look at the leaf itself, being broad, it has a large surface area, and that large surface area is for trapping optimum light for photosynthesis and to allow maximum gaseous exchange. So we can see that one of the adaptation of the leaf, it is broad, it is flattened, has got a large surface area which helps in the trapping of optimum light for photosynthesis and allowing gaseous exchange, like for example carbon dioxide, which is taken in to be used for photosynthesis, and oxygen given out. Another structural adaptation of the leaf for its function. The leaf epidermis is thin to reduce the distance across which the diffusion of carbon dioxide gas to palisade cells and oxygen gas from palisade cells take place. So we are looking at the structure of the leaf. This is the vertical section through the leaf. First of all, before we look at the explanation, let's look at the vertical parts of the leaf. On the upper surface, we have the cuticle. That is the one which is covering the upper surface of the leaf. Below it, there is the epidermis. And below the epidermis, we have the palisade mesophyll cells. And these palisade mesophyll cells have got chloroplasts. Then we also have the spongy mesophyll cells, and the spongy mesophyll cells have got very many air spaces between them. And then we have the guard cells on the lower epidermis. That is the vertical section through our leaf. So we are saying that the leaf epidermis, we have one which is on top. That one is what we call the upper epidermis. Upper epidermis. And we have another epidermis which is at the lower part of the leaf. That one is what we call the lower epidermis. And we are saying that the epidermis is thin. The epidermis is thin. If we take one cell of each of those upper and lower epidermis cell, you will see that the upper epidermis and lower epidermis are made up of one cell thick. They are made up of one cell thick. That layer of the epidermis, it is a layer made up of one cell thick. Now this one reduces the distance across which the diffusion of carbon dioxide takes place to the palisade cells. So carbon dioxide will diffuse through the guard cell on the lower epidermis. It will enter into the spongy mesophyll area where we have a lot of air spaces, and it will diffuse up and it goes into the palisade mesophyll cell where carbon dioxide is going to be used in the process of photosynthesis. But again, still it also helps the oxygen gas which is produced in the palisade cell to come out of the cell. So when carbon dioxide goes up, it is taken to the palisade cell where photosynthesis takes place. And when photosynthesis takes place, one of the byproducts produced is oxygen. And that one will come from the palisade cell through the air spaces which we find in the spongy mesophyll, and then it will come out of the guard cell on the lower epidermis. So we are seeing that one of the adaptations of the leaf for its function, it has got the epidermis which is thin, which reduces the distance across which the diffusion of carbon dioxide to the palisade cell and oxygen gas from the palisade cell takes place. Another adaptation of the leaf to its function is that the leaf has numerous stomata that allows easy diffusion of gases into and out of the palisade tissue. When we look at our structure, that one is the vertical section through the leaf blade. And on the upper side, we have the upper epidermis, and on the lower side, we have the lower epidermis. But we are saying that our leaf has got numerous stomatas. It has numerous stomatas. Now, the upper epidermis has fewer stomatas compared to the lower epidermis. The lower epidermis has got many stomatas compared to the upper epidermis. This is because the plant is trying to reduce the rate of transpiration from the leaf. And these guard cells on the lower epidermis, they are the ones that are going to allow the easy diffusion of gases into and out of the epidermis tissues. So the gases will pass through the stomata in the guard cell, and then they will move through the air spaces, those air spaces that we find in the spongy mesophyll layer. There are also cells there which we call the spongy mesophyll cell. Then the gas will move upwards to the palisade mesophyll cells where photosynthesis will take place. And one of the gas which we are going to allow in is carbon dioxide. It will enter through the guard cell, through the stomata, through the air spaces, mesophyll cells, up to the palisade cells. And when it reaches the palisade cell, photosynthesis is going to take place. And one of the byproducts which is produced is oxygen. Then oxygen will diffuse from the palisade cell through the air spaces, and it will get out of the leaf through the stomata to the environment. So we can say that the leaf is adapted to its function by having numerous stomata that allows easy diffusion of gases into and out of the palisade tissues. Another structural adaptation of the leaf to its function is that the leaf cuticle and epidermis are transparent to allow easy penetration of light to the photosynthetic tissues. What we are saying, the leaf cuticle, the leaf has a cuticle, and the cuticle is that upper surface layer which is covering the top of the leaf, is what we call the cuticle. And it also has the epidermis. Below the cuticle, we have the epidermis, which we call the upper epidermis. And the cuticle and the upper epidermis are transparent. They are transparent to allow easy penetration of light to the photosynthetic tissues. So we are seeing that the leaf is adapted in such a way that it has a cuticle and an epidermis which are transparent. And these ones allow easy penetration of light to the photosynthetic tissues. Now, the photosynthetic tissue on the upper side, we have the palisade mesophyll cell. Those are the ones which carry out most of the photosynthesis because they have a lot of chloroplasts. When you come down, you will find the spongy mesophyll cells. The spongy mesophyll cells, they also carry out photosynthesis, but they have fewer chloroplasts compared to the palisade cell. So most of the photosynthesis takes place in the palisade cells, though it also takes place in the spongy mesophyll cell, and it also takes place in the guard cells. Another structural adaptation of the leaf to its function is that the palisade cells are numerous, they are elongated with numerous chloroplasts to trap optimum light for photosynthesis. So when you look at our structure, you will see that the palisade cells, they are below the upper epidermis. They are below the upper epidermis, and there are very many of them. Very many of them below the upper epidermis, and they are elongated. They are elongated and numerous. The purpose is to have as many chloroplasts in them. So when you look at them, all of them, they have got chloroplasts, and they have got very many chloroplasts. And they are elongated to provide a large surface area over which sunlight can be absorbed. And they are numerous. And when you look at their packing, they are closely packed with very few air spaces in between them. This is to allow the easy trapping of optimum sunlight for photosynthesis. Because they are very many, packed together, elongated with a lot of chloroplasts, and situated near that epidermis and the cuticle, which are transparent, they can easily absorb a lot of sunlight energy, which is going to be used in photosynthesis. So you'll find out that the palisade mesophyll cells are the ones that carry out most of the photosynthesis, though also the spongy mesophyll cells do carry out photosynthesis, but the palisade cells are the ones that have got a lot of chloroplasts because they are situated in an area where sunlight can easily be trapped. Another structural adaptation of the leaf is that the palisade tissue is just beneath the upper epidermis, exposing them to trap optimum light for photosynthesis. So the palisade tissue, when you look at them, they are situated just beneath the upper epidermis. And being near the upper epidermis, that one exposes them to trap optimum sunlight that is going to be used for photosynthesis. So the leaf is adapted in such a way that the palisade cells that have got a lot of chloroplasts are just beneath the upper epidermis, and this one exposes them to the optimum light, which helps them to trap all the amount of light by the chloroplasts, which is going to be used in the photosynthesis of glucose, starch, and food. So we can say the leaf is adapted by situating the palisade tissue just beneath the upper epidermis to trap a lot of light for photosynthesis. Another structural adaptation of the leaf is that it has numerous and large air spaces in the spongy mesophyll layer for optimum gaseous exchange with the photosynthetic tissue. We are saying it has numerous and large air spaces in the mesophyll layer. Now, where is our mesophyll layer? That part there is what we refer to as the mesophyll, spongy mesophyll layer. And in that layer, we have the air spaces. Those are the air spaces. Those air spaces are numerous, very many, and you can see that they are very large. So those ones are the ones that allow gaseous exchange to take place between the outside and the photosynthetic tissue. So carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf, it passes through the air spaces, and when it passes through the air spaces, it goes to the photosynthetic tissues, that is the palisade mesophyll cell. And when it goes there, photosynthesis is going to take place, and it is going to be used in the production of oxygen. Then oxygen will diffuse out of the photosynthetic tissues into the air spaces, and then it will come out of the leaf. So we can say that the leaf is adapted in such a way that it has numerous and large air spaces in the spongy mesophyll for optimum gaseous exchange with the photosynthetic tissues. Another structure adaptation is that the leaf has numerous leaf veins containing of xylem vessels and tracheids for transporting water and dissolved mineral salts from the soil to the photosynthetic tissue. So we are looking at our leaf having numerous leaf veins consisting of xylem vessels and tracheids. If you look at our leaf, those ones are the xylem vessels, and they are used for transporting water, mineral salts from the soil for photosynthesis. So when you look at the leaf, it has the xylem vessels, and those xylem vessels, the ones that we are looking at, and the tracheids are impregnated with lignin. Lignin makes them very hard that they do not allow water to get out of the vessels. And also the lignin gives the strength to the trachea and vessels so that they cannot easily collapse when water is passing through them. Also, the xylem vessels have no cell contents. They have no cell content. Therefore, we refer to them as dead cells. They are tissues which are dead. And also you will see that their cells have joined end to end to form the tubes. And those tubes are the ones that we are calling the xylem vessel. So we are seeing that the adaptation of the leaf is by having numerous leaf veins, which consist of the xylem vessels and trachea for transporting water and dissolved mineral salts from the soil to the photosynthetic tissue. Another adaptation of the leaf to its function is that the leaf has numerous leaf veins, and this consists of phloem tissues for translocation of manufactured food from the leaf to storage organs and other parts of the plant. So our leaf veins, they consist of the phloem tissues. We have the phloem tissues, and they are for the translocation of manufactured food. Now, if you look at our phloem tubes, we have our sieve tube there. It has got a sieve plate which has got pores in them. From one cell to another, there is a plate which has got pores in them. So you find that our phloem sieve tubes, they are made up of living cells. So they are living. They are made up of living cells. The sieve elements, they have a cellulose cell wall, they have cell membrane, and they have the cytoplasm. But only that, they lack a nucleus and they lack ribosome. But the sieve tubes, they live closely with other cells which are called the companion cells. And those ones, the companion cells, have got a nucleus and other ribosomes. So they are working together. So our sieve elements are the ones that are responsible for the translocation of manufactured food from the leaf to the storage organs and other parts of the plant. So the leaf is adapted to its function by having numerous phloem tissue to translocate manufactured food. Another structural adaptation of the leaf to its function is phyllotaxy. Phyllotaxy, which is regular arrangement of leaves on the stem, minimizes overshadowing, overlapping, exposing all leaves to light for photosynthesis. So we are saying that phyllotaxy is the regular arrangement of leaves on the stem. And this one helps to minimize overshadowing and overlapping of the leaves so that they are all exposed to sunlight for photosynthesis. Now, when you look at our leaves 1, 2, and 3, all you see that the smaller leaves are in the front and the larger leaves are at the back. So this means that the leaf 1 is not overshadowing leaf 2, and leaf 2 is not overshadowing leaf 3. So all of them, they can easily be exposed to sunlight and they can trap sunlight. Now, if we look at the blues, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the way they are arranged in side arrangement. The leaves are arranged sideways. They are not overlapping each other, and therefore they are not overshadowing each other. So you find that all the leaves will be exposed to sunlight and they will be able to trap enough sunlight for photosynthesis. Another structural adaptation of the leaf to its function is the prominent midrib and leaf veins. Reduces chances of rolling of leaves, maintaining a large surface area for trapping optimum light for photosynthesis. So before we look at the way it does that, let's first look at the different parts of our leaf. We have the leaf stalk, the middle rib, we have the vein, we have the lamina, sometimes we call it the blade. And now we are going to cut our leaf through the vertical section. We want to cut it through the vertical section. And when we cut it through the vertical section, we shall throw away the lower part and remain with the upper part and see how we are going to look through the vertical. So this is what we are going to see in the vertical. After cutting off the lower part, you will see the section where you have cut through the midrib, and then you will also see where you have cut through the veins. So we are saying that those prominent midrib and the leaf veins, they reduce the chances of rolling of the leaves, therefore maintaining a large surface area for trapping optimum sunlight for photosynthesis. Because we have got very many veins and a midrib passing through the leaf cannot roll. And if it cannot roll, that means that it has got a large surface area over which it can trap sunlight, which is going to be used during photosynthesis. So that is another adaptation of the leaf to its function. Describe the structure and function of chloroplast. Describe the structure and function of chloroplast. Structure in which photosynthesis takes place. It is the structure in which photosynthesis takes place. That is a chloroplast. That is one chloroplast that we are seeing there. There are two chloroplasts, and they are green in color due to the presence of the pigment chlorophyll. They are green in color due to the presence of the pigment chlorophyll. Let's look at the different parts that make up the chloroplast. We have the outer membrane, and below the outer membrane we have the inner membrane. Those two membranes are what we call the chloroplast envelope. Then we have the lamella, there is the thylakoid, we have the stroma, we have the ribosomes, the starch granule, lipid granules, and we have the grana. Those are the different parts that make up our chloroplast. Let's look at some of the parts of the chloroplast. We have the envelope. The envelope has two phospholipid membranes. The envelope has got two phospholipid membranes. We have the thylakoid. The thylakoid provides a large surface area for packing many chlorophyll pigments, and they are series of flattened fluid-filled sacs. We have the stoma. It is the site of light-independent reactions of photosynthesis, and it contains enzymes that catalyze photosynthesis reactions. It is a site of light-independent reaction of photosynthesis, and it has got enzymes that catalyze photosynthetic reactions. We have the grana. This is the site of light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis, and it also holds the pigments, the enzymes, and electron carrier. That is the grana, the site of light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. It holds pigments, enzymes, and electron carriers. Give a word equation for photosynthesis. Give a word equation for photosynthesis. We have carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of sunlight energy trapped by chlorophyll to give us glucose and oxygen. So we shall have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide reacting with 6 molecules of water in the presence of sunlight energy and chlorophyll to give us 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. Describe the process of photosynthesis in plants. Describe the process of photosynthesis in plants. Now, the process of photosynthesis takes place in green plants, allowing them to make their own food. The process of photosynthesis takes place in green plants, allowing them to make their own food. Now, we have sunlight energy, which comes in. And when sunlight energy comes in, photosynthesis takes place. And after photosynthesis has taken place, the green plants will make food, and that food will be transported and stored into the storage area. The process of photosynthesis is controlled by enzymes and involves a series of reactions that take place in chloroplasts. So we are saying that the process of photosynthesis is controlled by enzymes. And one of the enzymes is ribose biphosphate carboxylase, or what we call ribisco. And this one catalyzes the combination of carbon dioxide and ribose biphosphate to form 2 molecules of glycerate 3-phosphate. So photosynthesis, the whole process is controlled by enzymes, And there are very many series of reactions that are taking place in the chloroplast, but we have just given only one of them, which is ribose biphosphate carboxylase, rubisco, which catalyzes the combination of carbon dioxide with ribose biphosphate to form a two molecules of glycerate 3 phosphate. And this series of reaction which take place in the chloroplast, the first one is the splitting of water, or what we call photolysis. Water is split into 2 hydrogen ions, 2 electrons, and half a molecule of oxygen. And then there is also another reaction whereby the 2 hydrogen ions and the 2 electrons that are coming from photosystem 2, they will combine with the NADP, a carrier, and then they will form reduced NADP. Now, all these ones are taking place in the chloroplast. Photolysis, which is the breaking down of water, this one takes place in the light-dependent reaction. It is a light-dependent reaction. This reaction needs light. And then we have hydrogen ions mixed with the 2 electrons and then NADP. These ones take place to form reduced NADP. These ones are light-independent reaction. They are light-independent reaction. Now, the light-dependent reaction, they take place in the grana. They occur in the grana, and the light-independent reactions, they take place in the stroma. Those are the parts of the chloroplasts. The raw materials required in photosynthesis are water and carbon dioxide. The raw materials that we require in photosynthesis are water and carbon dioxide. So we have carbon dioxide and water, they are our raw materials. And then we have light and chlorophyll, which are our conditions. And then we produce glucose and oxygen, which are our end products. The process of photosynthesis takes place in 2 consecutive stages. It takes place in 2 consecutive stages. The first one is the light reaction stage. And in this light reaction stage, it's where we have photolysis and phosphorylation. And these ones take place in the part of the chloroplast known as the grana. Then the second stage is the dark reaction stage. The dark reaction stage, it's where there is the fixation of carbon dioxide with ribose biphosphate to form glucose. And this one takes place in the part of the chloroplast which we call the stroma. The first stage in photosynthesis is the light reaction stage. It is also called the light-dependent stage as it requires light energy. It is called the light-dependent stage because it requires light energy. So here we receive sunlight energy from the sun. Light reaction stage. The reactions take place in the grana of the chloroplast. We are saying in the light reaction stage, the reactions take place in the grana of the chloroplast. The chloroplast has got the grana, and those layers are the ones that we call the thylakoids. When they compile themselves together, they form a stalk or a stalk, which we call the grana. And that is where the reactions, which we are referring to as the light reaction stage, that's where they take place. Now, the light reaction stage, light energy is trapped by chlorophyll in the chloroplast and converted into chemical energy. So we receive the light energy from the sun and is trapped by the chlorophyll in the chloroplast, and this energy is going to be converted into chemical energy. And these reactions take place in the grana. So we receive our light energy, and that light energy is coming from the sun. Then it is trapped by chlorophyll in the chloroplast. We have chlorophyll in the primary pigment, in the photosystem 1 and in photosystem 2. So when this light energy is trapped, the electron in the chlorophyll is going to be excited to move at a higher energy level. And in the higher energy level, as it is coming back down to the chlorophyll, it will pass through a chain of electron carriers, and the energy will be converted into the chemical energy, which is ATP. Light reaction stage. We get this energy, and this energy from the sun splits water molecule into hydrogen ions and oxygen atoms, and the process is called photolysis. And this one takes place in the grana of the chloroplast. So our light energy, which we are receiving from the sunlight, is going to split a water molecule, and this one will split into 2 hydrogen ions and a half molecule of oxygen. That whole process, where light is used to split a water molecule into hydrogen ions and oxygen, that whole process is called photolysis. And this one takes place in the grana of the chloroplast. So we get the sunlight energy. It splits the water into hydrogen ions and oxygen. So we have 2 molecules of water. They are split into 4 molecules of hydrogen ions and a molecule of oxygen and 4 electrons. The hydrogen ions are going to be carried to the dark stage by a carrier which we call NADP. The oxygen molecules, these ones will be taken for respiration, and the electrons are going to be taken to the photosystem 2. During the process of photosynthesis, oxygen atoms are released as byproducts, or they can also be used up in the process of photosynthesis. we know that our process involves releasing of oxygen as byproducts that can be released out of the leaf. So we have carbon dioxide reacting with oxygen as the raw materials. Of course, all of this takes place in the presence of sunlight energy, which is trapped by chlorophyll, which are the conditions to give us products like glucose and oxygen as our products. And the oxygen now is the one which is going to be released for the process of respiration. So let's see what happens at different light illumination. In darkness, there is no photosynthesis taking place in the plant, but respiration takes place whether it is darkness or whether there is light. Respiration is continuous. That means that we are going to take in oxygen from outside the plant. Because there is no photosynthesis taking place, that means no oxygen is being produced. And the respiration produces carbon dioxide. But because there is no photosynthesis, therefore there is no carbon dioxide used. So the carbon dioxide will get out of the plant. That is during darkness. During dim light, photosynthesis is taking place. And when photosynthesis is taking place, it means that also respiration is taking place, because respiration is a continuous process. As photosynthesis is taking place, it ends up producing oxygen. And this oxygen is going to be used in respiration. And respiration will end up producing carbon dioxide, which is going to be used again by photosynthesis. Therefore now, the rate of respiration and photosynthesis are equal, and no exchange of gases with air. So this is what we call the compensation point. When we have bright light, photosynthesis is faster than respiration. And that means that carbon dioxide will be taken into the plant, photosynthesis will take place, it will produce oxygen, some of the oxygen will be used for respiration, and the respiration will produce carbon dioxide, which is also going to be used by photosynthesis, and then more oxygen produced. When it is a bright light, there is more oxygen produced. So the plant is going to release a lot of oxygen. And because it is a bright light, a lot of photosynthesis is taking place. Therefore, much carbon dioxide is being used, and the plant will take in a lot of carbon dioxide. The light reaction stage, we are looking at the hydrogen ions formed are used in the dark stage of photosynthesis. Hydrogen ions produced This reaction takes place in the grana of the chloroplast. So what happens is that the hydrogen ions are going to be produced when water is split into hydrogen ions and oxygen molecules. That process is called photolysis. The hydrogen ions formed will be carried by NADP carrier. The NADP carrier will combine with the electrons that are coming from photosystem 1 and combine with hydrogen ions, and we shall end up forming a molecule which is reduced NADP. Now the reduced NADP is going to be transported to the dark stage to carry out photosynthesis. The dark stage takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. When the reduced NADP reaches this side, it is going to provide the hydrogen ions to the glycerate phosphate 3-carbon to form triose phosphate, another 3-carbon sugar, which is going to end up forming a 6-carbon glucose molecule. All this one takes place in the Calvin cycle, which is taking place in the dark stage, that is taking place in the stroma of the chloroplast. We are still in the light reaction stage. Light energy is used to form a rich energy molecule called adenosine triphosphate, or mostly we call it ATP. And all this reaction takes place in the grana. So how does it happen? We have the light energy. This light energy, of course, we are receiving it from the sunlight energy, is going to be trapped by chlorophyll, which is our primary pigment in photosystem 2. When this sunlight energy is trapped, it causes excitement of the electrons in the chlorophyll, and they rise to a higher energy level. Now, when these electrons rise to higher energy level because they have received a lot of energy, they are going to be trapped by chains of electron carriers. Now, when they are trapped with electron carriers, they will pass through chains of reactions, releasing energy as they are being returned back to the chlorophyll. And that energy which is released as they are going back, the electrons are going back to the chlorophyll, that energy is going to be used to combine adenosine diphosphate molecule will combine with a phosphate inorganic molecule to form ATP molecule, which is our adenosine triphosphate. So it is the energy which is coming from the electrons when they got excited from the sunlight energy. It is being passed over to adenosine diphosphate molecule, which is going to react with an inorganic phosphate using that energy to form adenosine triphosphate molecule, our ATP molecule. And the energy is going to be stored in the ATP. So now we have formed our rich molecule. And that process is called photophosphorylation. That process of converting sunlight energy into chemical energy is called photophosphorylation. And now we have our rich molecule, which is adenosine triphosphate, or what we normally call ATP. Now let's look at the dark reaction stage. Let's look at the dark reaction stage. It is also called the light-independent stage of photosynthesis. The dark reaction stage is also called the light-independent stage of photosynthesis. This one takes place in the stroma. It takes place in the part of chloroplast called the stroma. It does not need light, and that's why it is called light-independent stage. It can take place in the presence or absence of light. It is controlled by enzymes, and it also uses energy. So the dark reaction stage takes place in the stroma, the part of the chloroplast. It is controlled by enzymes. It uses energy, but it does not require light. So it can take place in the presence of light or absence of light. In the dark reaction stage, the hydrogen atoms will combine with carbon dioxide to form glucose. So, that whole process where hydrogen atoms combine with carbon dioxide to form glucose is what we refer to as carbon dioxide fixation. The hydrogen ions, remember these ones are coming from the light stage. And when we formed them in the light stage, if you recall, they were carried by NADP in form of reduced NADP. So when reduced NADP comes this side, it is going to hand over the hydrogen ions, and they are going to help in the fixation of carbon dioxide. And we shall end up getting the glucose molecule, which is a 6-carbon molecule. We can also produce amino acids and lipids. Now, the glucose which we form here can be now converted to starch, or it can be converted to lipids for storage and use in other processes. Factors that cause high rate of photosynthesis. Factors that cause high rate of photosynthesis. One of the factors is the high water availability in the soil. High water availability in the soil. The water is a raw material for photosynthesis. Water is a raw material for photosynthesis. We saw that in the presence of sunlight energy, the water is split to give us hydrogen ions and oxygen molecules. Now, these hydrogen ions that we get and oxygen molecules, by splitting water, that whole process is what we termed as photolysis. And the hydrogen ions are required in carbon dioxide fixation, which is taking place in the dark reaction stage. So our hydrogen ions will combine with NADP carrier in the presence of electrons that are coming from our primary pigment in photosystem 1 to form reduced NADP, which will be transported to the dark reaction to be used in the fixation of carbon dioxide. So we can say that water availability leads to high rate of photosynthesis. If we have high water availability in the soil, then we shall have a high rate of photosynthesis. Another factor that causes high rate of photosynthesis is high light intensity. High light intensity. Let's look at our curve of the rate of photosynthesis with variation of the rate of photosynthesis with light intensity. If we look at light intensity, we know that light is needed in the process of photolysis. That is, the splitting of water to provide hydrogen ions. And we know that hydrogen ions are used in the fixation of carbon dioxide. So when we get certain amount of light intensity and we try to extrapolate, we can see that the light intensity or the rate of photosynthesis will increase from 0 to that point. And if we keep on increasing the light intensity and we extrapolate, we see that the more we increase the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. So, as light intensity is increasing, we can see from the graph that also the rate of photosynthesis increases. But we can see that at higher light intensities, the rate of photosynthesis reaches the plateau, meaning that time is going to come that when we increase more light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will remain the same. That means that at that particular point, the factor which is affecting or limiting photosynthesis is not light intensity, but other factor. But we are seeing that as light intensity increases, also the rate of photosynthesis increases. Another factor that causes high rate of photosynthesis is light quality. Light quality. Let's look at our graph of the rate of photosynthesis varying with the wavelength of light in nanometers. The preferred wavelength of photosynthesis ranges between the wavelength of 400 nanometer and 700 nanometer. That is the preferred range for photosynthesis. It ranges from 400 nanometers to 700 nanometer. Those are the wavelength of light which will cause the rate of photosynthesis to be high. And we know that light is absorbed by chlorophyll, but chlorophyll is going to refract the green light. Chlorophyll will refract the green light. So that light in the wavelength of around 475 to around 555 there is going to be refracted by the chlorophyll. So also chlorophyll absorbs light mainly in the red and blue violet regions of the light spectrum. Chlorophylls will absorb light mainly in the red and blue violet region of the light spectrum. So that wavelength between 400 and 470 something there, that light is going to be absorbed by the chlorophyll. And that light between 630 or 20 to around 700 and something, that light wavelength is also going to be attracted or absorbed by the chlorophyll molecules. So we are seeing that the quality of light is going to cause the rate of photosynthesis to be high. So the rate of photosynthesis is higher in the red and blue light and is lower in all the other light types. Another factor affecting or that causes high rate of photosynthesis is concentration of carbon dioxide. Concentration of carbon dioxide. Concentration of carbon dioxide, we have carbon dioxide as a raw material required to combine with hydrogen ions to form simple carbohydrate molecules. So our carbon dioxide and oxygen and water, they form our raw materials, and in the presence of sunlight energy and chlorophyll, which are our conditions, we shall get glucose and oxygen as our products. So we know that increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, it leads to an increase in the rate of photosynthesis. That is another factor which causes a high rate of photosynthesis. So we have seen that increasing the concentration of carbon dioxide increases the rate of photosynthesis up to an optimum level. Let's see how it happens. We are going to look at our graph showing the variation of the rate of photosynthesis with light intensity. Now, we shall start with experiment 1. The curve of experiment 1, where we are having the temperatures maintained at 25 degrees Celsius and a carbon dioxide concentration of 0.04%. And if you look at this curve, the temperature was maintained at 25 degrees Celsius. And the concentration of carbon dioxide was at 0.04%. So if we try to look at the second experiment, which is experiment 3, we maintain the temperature at 25 degrees Celsius, but this time we increased the concentration of carbon dioxide to 0.4%. That is the new level of carbon dioxide. So when we look at the two curves, we see that the rate increased when the concentration of carbon dioxide increased from 0.04 to 0.4%. So we want to start by extrapolating and looking for the rate of photosynthesis at the carbon dioxide concentration of 0.04%. So if we get a light intensity of X, we shall see that the light intensity of X at 0.04% concentration of carbon dioxide will give us a rate of photosynthesis R. Now, if we increase the concentration from 0.04% of carbon dioxide to 0.4% of carbon dioxide, where we have maintained the same temperature and we are going to maintain the same light intensity still as X. So when we extrapolate, we see that the rate of photosynthesis increases up to a new product T. So this one shows us that T, which is the rate of photosynthesis at 25 degrees Celsius and 0.4% concentration of carbon dioxide, is far greater than the rate of photosynthesis R at 25 degrees Celsius and a concentration of 0.04% of carbon dioxide. So we can conclude by saying that carbon dioxide affects the rate of photosynthesis up to a certain optimum level. So one of the factors which is going to cause a high rate of photosynthesis is the concentration of carbon dioxide. Give the differences between light and dark reactions during photosynthesis. Give the differences between the light and dark reactions during photosynthesis. So we shall start with our chloroplast, that is our chloroplast. And those stacks of thylakoid piled together, they form what we call the grana. And we have what we would call the stroma. The ground tissue is the stroma. Now, when we look at the light reaction, this one occurs in the grana. The light reaction occurs in the grana. And the dark reaction occurs in the stroma, which is the ground tissue of the chloroplast. The stroma is where the fixation of carbon dioxide takes place. And in the grana, it's where the splitting of water by photolysis takes place. In the light reaction, which takes place in the grana, it's where ATP is formed in photolysis, or photophosphorylation, in photophosphorylation. And in the stroma, it's where we produce glucose, starch, sucrose, cellulose, and other products. Hello friends, thank you very much for participating in remedial lesson 11, where we have talked about photosynthesis. Let's meet again in remedial lesson 12, where we shall discuss about the chemicals of life. Thank you. Please don't forget to press that subscription button.